Hey, what's up, guys? I am Au5. I have been making electronic music for the past 9 years professionally, and I just want to give a big thanks to Andrew for hitting me up and letting me be a part of this 4 Producers challenge. I was expecting something a bit more musical to use from checking out his other episodes, but no, I got a sample of Squeaky Door. And I have to turn that into something musical. But it was fun. It was actually a really good challenge to have a very limited sound palette and to think differently in composing a song with just that. So yeah, here's the song. First of all, I just want to say that this entire song is made exclusively with the door sample. There is no drum samples, no synths, no external third-party samples. Everything is made from just the door. And before I get started, basically what I did was I took the original sample, I warped it and then stretched it out 4 times. So this is the original sample. So I stretched that out 4 times and then set it to texture mode, and then I turn the flux all the way down, and when I adjust the grain size, you can change the size of the grains, and depending on the size of them, you can tune them to a key, and I decided on C sharp. So basically, that's what it sounds like if you stretch it out. I did another iteration where I pitched the sample down -32 semitones and then applied the same technique, so I got a much darker timbre one. I did that again. Yeah, that's the stretched one that's pitched down. And then what I did another one, but I set the grain size to really small so I can get very pitch coherent high notes that seem usable. So in the beginning of the song, you pretty much just hear the door sample. But basically what I did was I warped it and I just kind of time corrected it so it created this groove, and then I put a Resonator's Ableton effect on it and tuned it to a C sharp minor 9th chord, and then I EQ'd it a little bit, threw some erosion on it, which I automate on and off, and then just a glue compressor. I increased the decay over time with automation to resonate that chord. And then this EQ is doing a very steep low-pass filtering, which I then use in the next section. Yeah. For these bell sounds right here, what I did was I took the stretched sample, the first one, which is this one, and I constrained the loop marker on this sampler to a very, very small loop. And what that's doing is it's creating basically like a single cycle wave. And when I mute all these effects, you'll be able to hear what it actually sounds like. So that's what it sounds like. I put the filter on it, added overdrive, did some EQ, more overdrive, reverb, another EQ, and then I just threw a limiter on it. And so it sounded like this. Yeah, basically turned into a bell sound. The next thing that you hear is these drums here. Yeah, so this kick drum is made from the stretch sample that was pitched down. And then what I did was I just took a very short clip of that sample and then threw all these effects on it. Here's what it sounds like completely unaffected. It's just like a really low thud. So I threw a pitch envelope on it and kind of shaped the pitch envelope to create more of an attack for the kick. I EQ'd it, boosted some lows, and then cut out some mids. Threw an overdrive on it to accentuate the low-end harmonics, another EQ, and then glue compressor for more punch and limiting. That's the kick drum. As far as the snare goes, 2 layers. So it's this top layer, which is the original sample, just high-pass filtered. Here's what it sounds like without the effects. It's just that slam at the end. I high pass filtered it, and then I threw an erosion on it with wide noise, so it gives it that crackle. A little bit of EQ, and then I'm automating the ping pong delay, which you'll hear. And then the second layer is just the same thing as the kick. I just copied that over from the kick, changed the pitch envelope a little bit so it's higher in pitch, and then an EQ to create a resonant peak where the body frequency should be, and then the frequency shifter is just tuning the drum even higher, and then topping both of those off with the glue compressor. So it's that sound combined with this, and you get that. And also, all these hi-hats are just the original sample, just really high-passed and reverbed, so the one that sounds like a shaker. These are all the tail end of the original sample of varying lengths and transpositions. I use a little bit of chorus on this one to widen it out, and then a little bit of simple delay to widen that one out as well. And then for the toms are exactly the same thing as the kick drum, except I'm using a frequency shifter and automating the fine frequency, so I can change the pitch of it like that, as you can see. So that's the percussion. I'm also automating a reverb send for the drums and multiple instruments. And on this entire drums group, I also have this EQ8, which is filtering out the highs for the rises. So the next thing you hear is this main bass. So this is 2 layers, a sub layer, and then I have this top layer. So the top layer, without all of these effects on it, is the pitch down sample that I stretched out, and I just looped that. Then I tuned it to the root key of the sample so that I can apply FM to it, and it kind of like thickens it up like that. And then I threw Serum effects on it, which is really just for its hyper dimension. Ignore this Serum skin. Yeah, that just widens it out a bit. And then I threw an EQ on it to get rid of some low mids, and then an auto filter with a notch to just filter out some random frequencies, give it some more movement. Top the whole thing off with multiband dynamics just to limit the low end. In this top bass, I also threw a bandpass filter on here, which I'm then automating the frequency of. And the sub is the same principle as the bells. I'm just looping a single cycle and then pitching it down really low. And I have a little bit of FM and some filtering. So this is what the sub sounds like originally. So yeah, throwing the filter on there and some overdrive. You get this really nice warm sound. And then a little bit of the FM. Kind of gives it some movement. And then combined, that's the bass. I also have the sub drop. It's the same principle as the sub in the bass. It's just a loop. But I'm using the pitch envelope to pitch it down. Like so. And then this effect up here. So I made these crashes with the tail end of the original sample with some reverb and EQ8 and glue compressor. Without that, it sounds like this. So reverb, EQ8 to cut out all the lows, and then top it off the glue compressor to limit it and add more sustain. And for this lifter, I resampled this crash cymbal with the tail, and I threw a vocoder on it, added some random bands to the filter bank, and then I'm using an automation on the formant to give it a rising sound. So it sounds like this. So all combined, it sounds like this. For this little bass turnaround thing right here, I'm automating on an erosion set to wide noise just to give it a little bit more grit. And then I'm just using I'm using pitch bend automation with a plus and minus 24 semitone range, so I can get some pretty extreme bending going on. So in this section, these resonant chords from the door squeak it's basically the same thing as before, except I'm just automating this on and off in a different pattern. So this is what it sounds like without any of the effects. I'm also warping it and changing the rhythm. So this is what it sounds like without the effects. And then with the resonator. And then the EQ. So these effects here, these smooth chords, same principle as the bells. I'm just taking a single cycle wave, making a chord out of it. I have some pitch enveloping and some filtering. So without that stuff, it sounds like, and also some spread. So without that, it sounds like this. Pretty harsh. So yeah, pitch envelope, filter, and then turn up the spread. But I have a utility that is collapsing the signal to mono. So what ends up happening is the spread is detuning the left and right channel very slightly from each other. And then when I sum it to mono, you get this comb filtery unison-like effect. This auto pan isn't really doing anything. Then I have this frequency shift splitter rack that I made. And this is basically just two frequency shifters split between a high and a mid band and set to 50% wet dry. And then I have the spread going in the negative direction for the highs and in the positive direction for the mids. And what that's doing is it's creating a phaser-like effect, but in opposing directions between the highs and the high band and the mid band. And all together. Just thought it was a cool effect. So I also have these pre-shift effects going into the snares. And that's really just the tail end of the sample reversed, transposed up 9 semitones, and then a little bit of chorus for width, and then EQ for brightness, and cutting out the low end. And then for these grit basses down here, this is what it sounds like without the effects. This is this resample iteration with just select parts cut up and organized in a pattern, and then affected with EQ automation, some reverb for width, multiband dynamics to limit the low end, and then a mid-side OTT, which is really just splitting the signal up into the mid channel and then the side channel, and then processing them with the OTT multiband preset separately. It gives it a much wider, larger sound. And for this sound right here, this is just the original sample, unresampled, but I reversed it and then pitched it down minus 13 semitones and tuned it a little bit better. And yeah, it just kind of sounds like a vocal. I also have it going over here. So for this section, I have these Vox chords, and yeah, so this is just the original sample, and I just found a part that was pretty pitch coherent, and I decided to just loop that in the same fashion that I did with the basses and the bells and that other stuff. And I just made a chord out of that, and then I added some overdrive, a lot of reverb, EQ, cut out the high mids, and then multiband dynamics, but just to expand the high and mid band, so the reverb doesn't decay super long. I like the sound of the reverb, but I didn't want it to. I wanted it to decay a little bit more non-linearly. Yeah, and then this thing right here. Yeah, this is the original sample, and I threw an EQ on here to accentuate some frequencies, and then, Then I use this really cool effect called unfiltered audio spec ops, and it's basically an FFT spectral effect which allows you to do all sorts of things such as like temporal smearing or frequency smearing, and I'm pretty much just using this to accentuate the harmonics that are already present within the sound, and then I'm freezing it a little bit so it sounds like this. Some auto pan automation, redux for extra brightness, and EQA to tame some of those top ends. And then I have these effects up here. So these crashes right here are actually just the little squeak from the original sample, reverbed out, tuned, high passed, and then it's the same processing as the crashes. And for these lifters, these new ones, I resampled out those with the tail. With the reverb tail, and then I just reversed them, pitched them down an octave, and then added some auto pan to get this effect. And then to get that like record scratch effect over the whole track, I'm routing the synths and my basses grouped to a sidechain bus, and I'm using a gate to sidechain all of the audio from the percussion. Gate is a little bit cleaner and more prominent than a compressor is. But yeah, how I got that vinyl effect is 2 simple delays, set them to time mode, and then if you right-click the top, you can set them to repitch mode, and basically that allows you to change the delay time, and the pitch will be affected almost like an analog delay. Then what I did was I just automated both of those delay times in a specific curve, so it sounds like this when you and I just automated off the rack when I didn't want it to keep bending, so it sounded like this if I did not re-automate it. So then for this last part, I have these strings-esque sounds. Yeah, so this was the pink clip, the very last one, where I tuned the texture mode to a very, very small grain size, and then I just threw that into a sampler and looped it. Here's without any of the effects on it. And then I used Voxengo Sonoformer, which is really just like a 32-band multi-band compressor to cut out some of those top ends. Yeah, some of those harsh highs there. Instead of using I couldn't use a static EQ because I'm changing notes, and that resonant peak is going to change depending on what note that I play. So I'm using it's basically like a spectral compressor, and then reverb, frequency shifter to repitch the beginning of the sample, EQ to cut out some of those extra lows. And then auto pan set to the ramp down mode, and then a rate of quarter notes, inverted, and then turned the shape up a little bit, and it kind of gave it that like pseudo sidechain effect. And then I have another layer which is the same thing except there's a chorus, and that's just for the harmony. I think I covered everything. Yeah, thank you so much again, Andrew, for hitting me up about this opportunity. This was honestly really cool, and this is like really huge for me. It's an honor to be featured on your channel. Like, I love the work that you do. I'm just super stoked to be part of it. So, thank you. Anyway, peace.